Hey guys, it's Keena. Welcome back to my channel. Now I am in the kitchen today because I saw all of your requests to see how to make herbal tinctures. So that is what we're going to do today. Okay, so today I have some red clover that I'm going to be making tincture out of, and this is one of the plants where you use the flower, so it's like really pretty. You know, it smell anything? Kind of just smells like herbal tea, but it's like purple and green and orange, pretty flower. And red clover is really good for skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis, and it's also an expectorant, so it's really good when you have like chest congestion, cough. It's also really good for inflammation in the throat if you have like a sore throat. So you know, we're going into cold and flu and still COVID season, so I'm gonna make some red clover tincture. And then there are about 3 kind of common ways that you can make tinctures. So the first one is like the oldest. It's like considered like a folk way of making tincture, and that's simply to get whatever herb you want, put it in a jar, and as long as you have 70 proof or higher alcohol, it's usually like corn alcohol, corn whiskey, grain alcohol, something like that, nice and clear and flavorless, but some people use vodka as well. As long as it's more than 70 proof, you just fill the jar with your herb in it to the top, put a lid on it, put it in a cool, dry place, and let it sit for 30 days. So you always want to make sure that you write the date on top so that you know when your tincture is ready. You can let it sit for longer, but it only takes about those 30 days to get all of the good constituents out of the plant. So that is kind of like the longest held one that makes it super easy for people, and you don't have to do a ton of math. Now, if you guys have been on my channel any length of time, y'all know I am a food nerd and a math nerd and a science nerd. So it doesn't bother me at all to have to do the math. And I'm going to be doing what I would say is like the second way. It's a little bit more clinical, maybe I would say. It's a more clinical way of, and scientific way of making tinctures. So that's the way that I'm going to be doing it. And really what's most important when you're making tinctures in this kind of like medicinal or clinical method is knowing actually about the plant that you're going to infuse. So while making tinctures is very simple, it's really just, you know, taking alcohol and usually a water combination and pouring it over plants, letting them sit in a dark, dry place for 30 days. That is really the gist. It's very easy to make tinctures. However, to make tinctures, especially when you're using them for your medical issues, then it gets a little bit more complex because you want to make sure certain things like how much alcohol you're going to be using and your ratio of like herbs to the actual liquid that'll go in the jar and things of that nature. So in the red clover, it is rich in like flavonoids and isoflavones and words that you may not know, but if you're into herbalism and you really want to make your own medicines at home, get you a good quality like a medical herbalism book, and it will tell you what the constituents is the word you're going to be looking for, the constituents inside of in the plant, and that's how you know the percentage of alcohol that's going to be necessary to pull out the properties that you need it to for medical purposes. So you have to know how much alcohol or how little alcohol to use to pull out those, you know, properties that you want. So like I said, red clover, for instance, is rich in isoflavones, flavonoids, and a ton of other constituents. And because of that, we will be using 40% alcohol. So what that means, to make it kind of easy, is that let's say that we were going to put 10 ounces of liquid in our jar, then that would mean that 4 ounces of that liquid needs to be alcohol, and the remaining 6 ounces to make up the 10 would have to be water. Okay, you can just use, you know, regular sink water. I always use purified water because I want your medicine to be as clean, my medicine to be as clean as possible. But that is really what you're doing. You just want to make sure that however much volume of liquid you're using is the right alcohol percentage for whatever that plant is. And for our red clover, it's going to be 40%. And then another thing is the ratio. Now you can really use as much flour to liquid as you want, but the standard amount in making tinctures is 1 to 5. So that would mean 1 part of your dried herb and then 5 parts of whatever the liquid is, right? And it's going to be a combination of alcohol and water. So in my case, I like to use clear grain alcohol because it has the highest proof and the highest alcohol percentage. So it's very close to 100% alcohol. It's 95% alcohol by volume, and it has the highest proof, and it is flavorless. So I love to use grain alcohol with mine because it makes your math a little bit easier. You can almost think of it as like 100% pure alcohol, and all you have to do to come up with your 40% is put the matching amount of water. So I have already measured about 6 grams of the clover. So I'm going to move this out of the way. So normally, no, I'm sorry, this is actually 10 grams of clover, red clover. I actually put a little bit more on here. So traditionally, if we were following the math, we have 10 grams is what we measured of the raw plant. So then if you do 1 to 5, then that means we need 5 parts liquid, which would mean 50, and it wouldn't be grams. In this case, it would be 50 milliliters because we're doing volume and not mass. And I know that sounds like a science class, but this is what you need to know if you really want to make this version of tinctures. So it would be 50 milliliters of liquid, but here's the thing. When we have bulky plants like this and not like tiny like ground up leaves or even roots, they weigh a lot, and rhizomes, they weigh a lot. So that when you're weighing out your, say, 10 grams, you can have way more water volume. But in this, if we only poured 50 milliliters of water, which is like less than 2 ounces of water, it would just kind of soak into the flour, and it really wouldn't have an opportunity for the actual flour to like sit in the liquid for the 30 days. So in this case, I'm actually going to kind of blend the folk method with the like traditional science method, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my liquid is 60-40, so 40% of this grain alcohol and 60% water, but I am going to fill up the jar that I'm going to put it in so that the plant is actually covered. Because if you just let it kind of absorb all of the liquid that you put in there, it's going to be a lot harder at the end of your 30 days to then press out all of that liquid that remains like out of the plant, if that makes sense. So okay, so now I'm just going to put in our flour, and I just have this little funnel because I like kitchen gadgets, which y'all already know, and it just makes it a little bit neater in your like workspace. Okay, so this jar is only about 800 milliliters, like, you know, in volume, and there's about 200 milliliters of space being taken up by our flour, so we only have about 600 milliliters of space left in the jar. So that's how much liquid I'm going to be putting in here. So math, if we're going to put 600 milliliters of water or liquid in here with our red clover, then we talked about 40% needs to be alcohol. So 40% of 600 is 240. So we need 240 milliliters of the grain alcohol, and then we need the other 360 milliliters of liquid to just be plain clean water. So I put the 360 milliliters of plain clean water in here, and now I'm going to pour my grain alcohol until I get to 600 milliliters. It's funny kind of look, it does like this swirling thing, if you can really see close, of the water mixing with alcohol. You can tell there's 2 different things in here. Almost perfect. Okay, so now we have our 600 milliliters of liquid, and all I'm going to do is just pour this in the jar and seal it up. Okay, so now just screw the lid on nice and tight. Give it a really good shake to mix that alcohol and water and herb in here. So this will just be floating in there. It'll start to turn color throughout those 30 days. Right now it's still basically clear. You want to make sure that you put the date on there. And then 30 days, you'll know that it's ready. Now, a good rule of thumb is to maybe once a day or at least a couple times a week, go over to where you're keeping your tinctures and just shake it. Like, just give it a good shake, just so things are getting mixed up, so that we're really getting those constituents out and then just sit it back down. Like nothing really involved. Making herbal medicine actually is not hard, but it is a labor in patience because 30 days, you have to kind of think ahead, or when you get, you know, a batch of new herbs, just go ahead and make the tincture now so that when you do need it or want it, or you want to share it with somebody, it's ready. Because if you're thinking, you know, oh, I need cough medicine now, and then you know what I mean, like you gotta wait 30 days, then that's not ideal. So that's what you want to do, is make those ahead, wait your 30 days. Now, there is kind of a third honorable mention method of making tinctures that if you cannot wait, so let's say someone is ill now, they're not feeling well, you really could use a good tincture right now, and you don't want to make like a just tea with it or something, because you can totally just make tea. Or you can make a decoction, which is just boiling the flower or herbs or roots just in water for about 20 minutes. If you don't want to do either of those things and you really just want a tincture that, or you want it to be portable, whatever, you can apply heat. Now you have to be very careful when you mix heat with alcohol. So if you don't know what you're doing and you're not experienced in working with alcohol over heat, then I would advise that you just not do it at all. If you are, then basically, and I'm not going to show you here, but basically you would take the lid off because you don't want it to become like explode. So you would take the ring off, but you'd like lightly place the lid on top, and then you double boil it. So you would take this that we've already made, same percentages and stuff, but then you would put this into a pot of boiling water. So when the water gets into a rolling boil, you're going to sit this right inside of that boiling water, and then with a loose lid on there, and just let them boil together for about 20 to 25 minutes. Now, because the heat and the alcohol together will accelerate the process that we would normally be waiting those 30 days for. So then at the end of those 20 minutes, you would strain off, you know, your flour, you would let it cool, and then your tincture would be ready. Now, I don't personally have like technology or equipment to test just how potent an extraction would be waiting the 30 days versus doing the quick cook method or the heat method. But I know the heat method works. I have used it myself depending on what I need and when I need it. But I don't really know the difference. I do know that the tinctures will still work regardless. Like they still are very efficacious. So if you're in a hurry or you're just excited to try making some tinctures, you can do a couple with the quick cook method. But I always still advise to go ahead and make use some of the just old school kind, shake it up, put it in the cupboard, just leave it alone, and then you'll look up one day and be like, oh, I wish I had some such and such, and then you look in your little herbal corner and you already have that tincture made. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. So many of you guys, after watching the diabetes herb video, asked for how do we make tinctures, you know, if you buy the herbs. Now those herbs, like all herbs, can be used in infusions or decoctions and just drank like tea. But if you're a tincture person and you like how quick they are and how fast acting they are and how portable they can be in the little dropper bottles, then I hope this helped you. Let me know in the comments if this helped you understand how to make tinctures. And then if you have questions or you have an herb that you want to make a tincture and you don't have your own medical herbalism book, or maybe you can't find it, the answer on the internet or something, leave a comment and I'll try to get back to you. If you just drop like, hey Keena, you know, what percentage of alcohol do I need for cinnamon, or what percentage of alcohol do I need for goat's root, or what percentage of alcohol, you know, do I need for whatever, then I'd be happy to answer that to help you kind of skip that part. But it's always going to be 1 to 5 on your ratio of dry to wet, and then it's just the percentage of alcohol is really the important part to really get out the properties that you want out of the particular plant you're going to be using. And then for all my day ones who've been here, who've been making cannabis infusions, and you want to make a cannabis tincture, cannabis is heavy in constituent called resins. So you would use 90% alcohol. So really, it's very easy. Like, you don't even have to use water if you don't want to. You can use straight grain alcohol because, like I said, it's 95% and it won't hurt it. So you can make your cannabis or hemp tinctures with just straight grain alcohol. You can add the 5% water if you want to, but it won't hurt if you don't. And it's the same method. It's the same method. So you would put your herb in the jar, and then you would put your 90% alcohol with it, shake it up, leave it alone, and voila, you did it. You made tincture. So I hope that helps, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.